welcome back, or welcome if this is your first video you're seeing of me. This is only my second video, so hi. So I'm going to be doing a highly requested, I don't want to say highly requested, but it's fairly up there kind of requested video of how I got diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Just going through how I felt before I even knew I was diagnosed, what the symptoms were, all that stuff, how I felt mentally, I guess, going through the whole process. I do have a bunch of notes written down because it was kind of an emotional thing and happened over the span of a few months. Let's just jump right into it. I just want to preface though that my symptoms were very, very mild for how far along it was, and I think that it was the perfect timing for me really to like go to the doctor when I did, because it was like school was ending sort of thing. But if I had realized and researched more when I first felt the symptoms, I definitely would have gone to the doctor sooner. And when I say the symptoms and all this sort of stuff, don't think, oh my gosh, I feel some of these things, I need to go to the doctor. Like, I'm not doing this to scare you guys. It's just me explaining where I went from like being perfectly healthy to realizing I have cancer. So be very cautious of like your body, do self-exams on yourself. I just want to say that, like, be your own advocate basically, because some doctors just want to get money out of you. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. First off, I felt my first mass, I guess, or I don't want to say tumor because it's just cancerous cells in your lymph node, but I felt my first mass actually a year ago in August of 2019. Hold on. And honestly, I didn't think anything of it. I forgot about it for a while, and it was around here on my neck, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm getting sick, maybe it's a cyst, or maybe it's related to like my period or something. So I didn't think anything of it, so I just disregarded it. Months go by, literally August to January, and I feel them and I'm like, what the heck, they're still here? That's very weird. So then I found a primary care doctor. I didn't have one before because I was living in Oklahoma for a year and a half, and I didn't go to the doctor down there because I was never sick. And then before that, we lived in New Hampshire, and right before I went to Oklahoma, we moved to Jersey, and I wasn't here long enough to have a primary care doctor. So long story short, I found one in January of 2020. This is where the story just makes me angry, because she had no idea what she was doing. And I know primary care doctors are like the lowest or whatever, like they're the lowest paid, lowest appreciated, whatever, but this woman. Anyways, so in January, it took a while for me to find a good primary care doctor. In February is when we actually found her, and she was super close to home, so we just went there, and she was not very good at her job. Let me just say that. We had to like interrogate her to give us advice for like probably a good hour of our first appointment, and then she finally said, okay, fine, let's go do blood work. And I was like, you're my doctor. Like, she told me a whole slew of things that were completely wrong, because if you know your body, you know when you're sick, you know when you have a fever, then you know that, you know when something's wrong basically. Like, you know your own body. If you've been sick enough times in your life when you're like older, then you're like, okay, yeah, this is like a cold, or this is like an ear infection, or this is strep. Like, you just know. Or you also know when like you have a fever or something, okay? She didn't know what it was, so she basically said, after my blood work was completely fine, by the way, I was completely healthy, I had no symptoms, I wasn't feeling sick at all. I didn't have any redness in either of my ears, I didn't have any like stuffiness or whatever, okay? She says, oh, it could be an infection. And then she said, oh, it could be a virus. Like, at this point, she's just like spewing out like options to me, and I'm like, am I supposed to pick one? Like, and then she said maybe it could be an autoimmune disease. This is where I was like, okay, maybe, because on my blood work it says I tested positive for an ANA, and an ANA is basically like the test that they do in your blood work to test if you have an autoimmune disease. So I was like, okay. Basically, she said there's obviously just inflammation in your body, so let's prescribe an antibiotic. First of all, antibiotics don't actually do a whole lot. They're just a way for your doctor to make money off of you and your insurance. Like, that's how I view antibiotics. The last time I took an antibiotic, I think I was like 10. She prescribed it, sent it to my CVS, and I never picked it up because I was like, woman, I'm not sick. Looking at my blood work, we literally had to force her to explain my blood work to me, even though I know how to read blood work. She wasn't gonna go over it anyways, and I was like, really? Like, I'm here to go over my blood work with you. Like, that's why we made the appointment. And then she was like, oh, you want to go over your blood work? Anyways, that's the part of the story that gets me very upset, if you can't tell already. We pressed her more, and then she said, oh, you can go to an endocrinologist, you can go to a rheumatologist. And if you know anything about anything, those things just don't really have a whole lot to do with like this. I wasn't even showing symptoms, we just wanted to get the lumps in my neck checked out. And we were like, well, I don't really think that's like where I want to go. And like, we were pressing her for a good like 30 minutes at this point, and this was our second appointment with her to go over my blood work. And so she was like, you know what, maybe just go to an ENT. If you don't know what an ENT is, it's an ear, nose, and throat. And apparently they're also responsible for all the glands in your neck and like in this general area. So I was like, you know what, that's the first good idea you've had, lady. I didn't say that to her, but you know. So we found an ENT, and thank goodness we did. Like, this woman is, I still try and reach out to her. I'm actually gonna go see her very, very soon. I hope to, because I just want to say thank you to her. So this was in March when we scheduled the appointment to see the ENT. Best decision ever again. She asked for more blood work and an ultrasound. Blood work again came back normal. We told her about testing positive for an ANA. She was like, I don't really think that has anything to do with this, but you know, we'll do it again. And she prescribed the ultrasound. I went to the ultrasound. The tech was like, oh, you have them on both sides. So I felt lumps here first. That was the first place I felt lumps. And then in March, apparently I was getting more on this side, and I had never noticed. I like didn't feel over here. I didn't think that anything of it. And she was like, oh, you actually have more on this side. Lo and behold, I did. The ENT, when we went back to see her, said that the only concerning thing was the size of the lymph nodes. It wasn't like the feel of them, it was just the size and how enlarged they were. So she prescribed a needle biopsy. Basically, a biopsy is where they remove or take a sample of a mass of cells or anything in your body, basically, but they can take a biopsy of your skin, of like a piece of an organ, like mass tissue, basically. So after the ultrasound, we went back to see her, and she prescribed the needle biopsy. But that was in March. But by the time we had the script, COVID happened. Isn't that just great? Coronavirus happened, everything got shut down, and all non-essential procedures were no longer going on at all. So I couldn't get a needle biopsy. The only procedures that were happening were emergency procedures, and this wasn't an emergency procedure. So from April to May, or mid-March, I guess, to May, I couldn't see a doctor. I couldn't go out anywhere. I couldn't even get an ultrasound or a biopsy or anything done. I was honestly getting a little bit more worried, but not completely, because I could feel the masses in there. I was definitely getting more over here. And then in May, that was probably the most emotional month for me, just because I found a mass, another one, two actually, in my armpit on this side, and it was so large. This is important to always do self-exams on yourself, okay? I felt it, and I was like, yeah, that's not normal. That is completely and 100% not normal. And I remember just running to my mom crying, and she was like, okay, like, I think it was sinking in for her, it was sinking in for me, like, okay, this could be cancer, like, genuinely and 100%. Like, I feel like my body was telling me, like, this is cancer, Rachel. Like, the entire time I had this, like, total peace. I guess I was accepting, like, whatever it is whatever it is. Like, I just want to know what the heck it is. Turning my page of my notes. So at that point, we started calling the ENT every single day, and the university radiology is where I went actually to get my needle biopsy, and press them, and they had to go through approval of the insurance. It took a few days for them to get approval from university radiology to even do it, because it wasn't an emergency case or emergency procedure. And then I had to get a COVID test, because now that's required before every single minor and major operation and procedure, even non-emergent or emergency, you have to get a COVID test. So that was a little hassle. Got my needle biopsy, they went in right here. It was a big needle, such a big needle, and they came back and said, we didn't get enough cells, it was inconclusive. What? That kind of frustrated me, because I was like, you stuck like 4 needles into my neck and you didn't get enough cells? That frustrated me a little bit. But they did say that some of the cells showed signs of lymphoma, but they weren't 100% sure because there weren't enough cells that they got. So my ENT ordered like biopsy, so a surgical removal of one of the masses in my neck. And it was literally May 25th. I had the needle biopsy. The next day she called me, or not the next day, I think it was like 3 days later. So it was like 28th of May, she called me and said, the results were inconclusive. We're gonna schedule a real biopsy. I'm gonna call you tomorrow and tell you the date. And I just need you to be there 2 hours before. And I was like, okay, all right, this is happening super fast. So then she called me, said we're gonna get it done June 1st. So June 1st, I went in. She's actually like a surgeon too. So she went in, removed a mass. I don't know if you can see right there in my neck. She removed a mass that was probably like that big. She said it was a very good size. And then those days between June 1st and getting my results were probably like the most nerve-wracking few days like ever. Wow, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional. What the heck? Okay. Anyways, then June 4th, she called us in and said, hey, can you come in tomorrow? I have the results. Immediately, I was like, And then also on the phone, I sort of knew something was up because she called me and said, oh, also, you should probably bring one of your parents. Like, they, now with COVID, like, they don't even want you to bring a visitor. Like, I had to get special approval for the first appointment for my mom to come with me because my mom wanted to come with me. So the fact that she said, hey, bring a parent, and I'm 21, like, I'm an adult. I don't need a parent to come because legally, like, they aren't supposed to come with me or, like, whatever. Like, we don't have to share medical information. So the fact that she said, bring one of your parents, I was like, okay, I get it, sure. So at this point, I've already accepted it. June 5th, we went to the office, and one of the first things she said was, so it is Hodgkin's lymphoma. I remember that very clearly because she had her N95 on and I couldn't see her lips, but I heard it, and it was like, the whole name of what I have. This is it. It's called Hopkins lymphoma, nodular sclerosis. There's a few like types of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then there's non-Hodgkin's, but that's a totally different type. So one of the types is nodular sclerosis. This type is actually just more geared towards the younger adult women that actually experience this. It's very common in young adult women, so you know. While we were there the same day, she was like, look, do you need any recommendations for an oncologist? Oncologist is a doctor who treats cancer patients. And we were like, honestly, like, we trust you so much, like, your recommendation is probably the best one that we can have right now. So literally in the office, she called one of her colleagues, and he's now my oncologist, but she called him and she said, hey, I have this patient, she's 21, she has Hodgkin's lymphoma, nodular sclerosis, and I know that you're an expert in this field, so can you see her? She puts him on speaker. Literally, I'm in the office with her. She puts him on speaker, and he's like, hi, Rachel, like, when are you available to come in next week? Like, this is, like, it was, like, the biggest blessing ever. Like, finding him and finding his office and finding our ENT was probably the, like, God put that in our path, like, for sure, and I'm so thankful. So literally, that was a Friday. Then me and my parents, I had to get special permission to bring my parents because they wanted to come because I'm living with them. You know, they're supporting me. Hold on, I need more coffee. Oh, so good. So on that Tuesday we went in, we went over a few things. We went over treatments, possible staging that I could be. There's stage 1 through 4 of cancers. Like, that's just all cancers, that's how it is. And you need to get a bunch of scans and tests to verify what stage you are. So he did an initial just self-exam on me. He just like pressed around, felt on my stomach, felt around on my hips to see if I had anything there. From what he could see and feel, he diagnosed me as stage 2B. I got 4 tests done in a matter of the next 2 weeks because I had to get a port put in. So before I got my port put in, and we had to find out what stage I was, I got a PET scan with contrast from head to toe, and then a CT scan with contrast of my abdomen to my pelvis. PET scan shows things, I don't want to say color, but it shows like the darkness of the cancer cells. So then the CT scan shows where the soft tissue is. So when they compare your first CT and PET scan to the last ones, they're like, oh, the mass is still there, but the cells aren't dark anymore, so they're not cancerous anymore. So that's why they do both instead of just one. Then I had 2 other tests done. It was called a MUGA scan to test my heart and a PFT to test my heart, because the treatment that we were going for, there's 4 drugs and 2 of the drugs are very severe. One of them affects your heart and one of them affects your lungs. So we just wanted to make sure that my heart and lungs were healthy. I was a swimmer for 10 years, so I hope my lungs and heart are healthy. But they said that they came back with flying colors. They were great. So I scheduled to get my port put in. This is my port right here. I scheduled to get my port put in on the 24th of June. And then my first day of chemo was the 25th. So basically the port being put in is amazingly helpful. I don't want to explain it into too much detail, but it's fairly simple. There's this little piece right here, like I can literally like hold it like this. Kind of looks like a button or like a squid's eye. It has like a plastic or rubber top with like a silicone eye in the middle, and that's where the needle goes in. And then there's a little tube, I guess, to one of my veins right here, so it can go directly into my bloodstream. This is so much better than getting your arm pricked every time you go to chemo, because the toxins can actually deteriorate the tissues in your arm and cause rashes and hurt your blood vessels. So I was like, you know what, I don't want any of that. If I have to go through 12 of these treatments, I want this. And it's been a lifesaver because they can even take blood out from here. So great. So this is really just to help me through my cancer journey, and they can literally just open it up and take it out when I'm done. So it's great. I want to go over my scans really quick and staging if you don't know how staging works. After my scans, they did find that I was stage 4. That's not actually as scary as it sounds. I just want to explain staging really fast. It's not about severity, it's about where the cancer and abnormalities have spread, basically. So stage 1 is one mass, like one area of abnormalities or cancerous cells from the diaphragm up, only one. So I had masses here, so that was already stage 1. Stage 2 is 2 masses from your diaphragm up, 2 or more masses in your diaphragm up. So here, I had them here and here, so that's already stage 2. And he thought I was stage 2B before my scans, because stage 2A is just having the more than one mass in my diaphragm up. But B means that I'm showing a symptom. My only symptom was hot flashes, like huge, like severe menopausal hot flashes, not just like, oh my gosh, like it's hot outside. Like I would be in the AC, like on the couch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like taking off layers because I was like dripping in sweat. That was not fun. I definitely haven't had a hot flash since starting chemo, so that's great. But that's why he called me stage 2B. Stage 3 is any abnormal masses below your diaphragm, basically any masses below your diaphragm. Stage 4 is having any abnormalities on any lymphatic organs. But a lymphatic organ could be spleen, bone marrow, or the thymus gland, or any other like big lymph nodule areas. In summation, in a little summary, if you will, I have stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, nodular sclerosis. I have masses on both supraclavicular areas, that's what it's called. Under my left armpit, I had 2 masses there. I had multiple masses here. All of them were about 1 centimeter. I had 1 centimeter in here and 1 2 centimeter mass. It felt bigger, but apparently it's only 2 centimeters. I have a 3 centimeter mass in the center of my chest. We think it's on my thymus gland, but we can't really see that, but it's just in the center of my chest, right under my rib cage. That was probably the biggest one, I think. And then I also have abnormalities on my spleen and lymph nodules below my diaphragm. And before my diagnosis, I felt completely fine. Last August, I felt fine. I haven't gotten sick, like actually genuinely sick, like a cold or a virus or an ear infection in years. Genuinely years. So this was sort of like a huge deal. I did not expect it to happen. It was kind of crazy. All I gotta say about this, like through this whole process and whole story, I want to obviously help to inspire people as much as I can, but also I want to encourage people to be an advocate for themselves. Like, yes, your doctor is smart, but they don't actually know your body. Like, you know your body, you know what's going on. Like, I know you can tell when you're sick and when something's not right, so you have to be, let me say that again. You have to be an advocate, okay? For yourself. Please, please. Because if I hadn't pressed her enough, I probably would only be living for like another 5 years if I completely forgot about this. Obviously, I'm not just gonna like let the masses go. I wouldn't do that. But if I hadn't pressed her enough, we would probably still be searching to find someone to help me. My first day of treatment was June 25th. My type of treatment I'm getting is called ABVD. It's the standard Hopkins lymphoma treatment. There's also another one, but that's like for way more severe. I'm only doing chemotherapy. I'm not doing radiation. Thank goodness. We wanted to avoid it at all costs because it can lead to a lot more damaging side effects and long-term effects like other cancers. So we didn't want to do that. Even my doctor was like, you're young, we don't want to put that risk in your life at all. I have a scan tomorrow, which is Wednesdays. I had 2 cycles, which is 4 treatments. Tomorrow's my first PET scan to see how I'm moving along, and tomorrow we determine if I take out one of the drugs. The B drug, because it's ABVD. It's adriamycin, bleomycin, and then I forget the last 2 to be completely honest. So we hopefully, Lord willing, can take out the B drug because it's not obviously, but it's actually a very like unpredictable toxin, and that one actually damages my lungs. So I get winded walking to the mailbox, but I can work out for an hour. Like, okay. Hello everyone, this is Editing Rachel post video, like post a few days later. I had not expected that this video was going to be so long, but I also wanted to give a quick PET scan update because my PET scan was yesterday. Thank you to those of you who have been supporting me, subscribing, commenting, liking, all that good stuff. But I did want to give you guys a quick update because it's like amazing news and I can't stop like smiling and being happy about it. Yesterday was my PET scan. If you don't know what a PET scan is, it's something electrical something. I don't even know what it's called. I forgot. But basically they inject you with this radioactive material. You sit there for an hour and wait, and then you use the bathroom to like empty your bladder, and then you sit in this machine. It's not very loud. It's kind of like a short donut, and you go back and forth very slowly. And there's like plates in there that react, that make the radioactive material inside of you light up, and it lights up the hot spots of cancer. So they do a PET scan and CT scan way at the beginning before you start chemotherapy to determine your stage, and then they compare those to your new PET scans throughout your treatment to see, okay, well the mass is still here, but it's not bright anymore, so that means it's not hot and not cancerous. So that's how they determine like how you're going through the chemotherapy. So I just explained where all the masses were in my body in this video, so if you guys remember that, basically now they told me like literally 3 hours after I got home from my PET scan, my doctor called me and said, listen, got the results, they're absolutely amazing, you're doing so well, and you told me that there's no longer lumps in my neck, in my chest, under my armpit. The mass on my spleen is now negative, and all of the masses that were around, scattered around my lungs, scattered in my abdomen, are like half or less than half of the size that they were. It's absolutely amazing. And they use this scale called the Duvel scale. It determines like how far along the cancer is. Basically, it's from like a scale of 0 to 5. 5 is like you're not reacting at all to the treatment and the cancer is getting worse, and 0 is you're doing really well. There's no more growth, or the cancer isn't hot anymore. There's no more uptake. The cancer cells aren't hot. So he said that the PET scan technicians determined and like classified me as a 0. So I'm not technically in remission because I still have to go through more treatments, and some of the masses are still there, and they're still not to like the size where they should be, like a normal lymph node or lymph nodules. So he can't say I'm in remission or anything like that. So I'm still going through with my treatments, but we're taking out the second drug in my cancer regime. It's called ABVD, and we're taking out the B, which is bleomycin, which damages my lungs. So thank God. I'm just so happy. I'm so thankful that this is happening and that everything is going literally amazing. Like, I had friggin' stage 4 cancer, and now I'm basically back to like stage 1. So it's just awesome. I'm so thankful. And tomorrow I go in for my 5th treatment, the first treatment without the bleomycin, and I get to see my scans in person side by side. So I'm really excited for that. But again, I want to say thank you to everyone who's praying. I appreciate all the support. I have been a little bit emotional, mostly happy. I've gone like teary-eyed thinking about like, oh my gosh, this is almost over. It's amazing. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and I'm feeling awesome and great. And yeah, I can't wait to give you guys more updates. Thank you so much again for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram if you're not already, and I hope to talk to you guys very soon. Go make it a great day.